it turns out that you may have lost this first round, so to speak, how much does that jeopardize your attempt to redefine the way we?
Well, every one of these struggles along the way defines the ability to do the future, right? That's why they have thrown so much into this battle, as it were. They put a lot of troops in there yesterday, because they think it's important to win an early skirmish, as it were. They were shocked that the court hearing went against them. They just could not believe that they lost that kind of thing, because that's what they usually control. But I think they see that they better send me a signal now. I think that whole meeting yesterday was a purposefully staged confrontation to teach me a lesson, that if I challenge them in this way, they're going to fight back and embarrass me.
Are you embarrassed?
No. I think I saw more clearly why I was pursuing this afterward than I did before. In other words, the kinds of misinformation that their own employees had, the kind of propaganda, as it were, that the people that they control had. I was talking to one lady who worked at Convis, and she said, 94% of the hotels voted for this. I said, no, they didn't. I said, in fact, the majority of the hotels that voted against it. She said, no, 94%. She kept repeating that. Now, the 94%, of course, comes from a weighted vote that allows 9 hotels to control the whole vote, by the way. But, the vote is weighted by their revenue and number of rooms. And the vote lost by 157 to 217 or something like that. And 1,000 hotels didn't even vote, which leads me to believe they didn't have any interest in it. But this is big hotels. By the way, the big hotels are using the little hotels to subsidize what they want to do. That's what's going on here. The little guys don't have a stake in this. They voted against it. And it's all about, it looks to me, about greed and having what they want to do being paid for by the city and forcing other hotels to join in them. And that forcing of hotels, by the way, you tell me, if you have a self-assessment, which is what they say, that's forced on you that you don't want to pay, sounds like a tax to me. And that's, I think, why this whole thing will be invalidated by the courts eventually anyway.
Yesterday you got food, jeered, heckled. Some people would say that's just part of your personality. What you say to this? I mean, I think people were used to an administration previous to yours where we didn't see a lot of this except during the Aguirre days. How do you respond?
Would you say, who do you think I am, Gene Cuppis? No, I'm just... Look. I said yesterday, and I really believe it. I think it was a sad day in that we have come to this kind of polarization. This is not good for San Diego. I mean, and I thought we had a path toward a negotiated settlement. I asked for a couple more days, which Mr. Gloria did not find it worthy to go for. I thought that it was set up, as I said earlier, to teach me a lesson. So, I think it goes with the territory of trying to make some significant changes in the city, that the people who are in power don't want the change, and the people that they employ, they use to make sure that are going to argue for that. And I don't want anybody to lose their job. But by the way, the only people so far who have been threatened with a job loss was Convis, or what do they call it, San Diego Tourism Authority. That is a privately funded and privately operated group. It's not a public, agency. The private sector can fund that. In fact, that's what they claim they're doing. They don't claim this is a public tax. It's funny. They claim it's a private assessment that they're. So why isn't Hyatt and Hilton and Marriott and those people? Why aren't they just funding this marketing program that they want and they think is so important? They can fund it today, tomorrow, yesterday. So I don't know why all those people were up there asking the council for money, by the way. All the people who run those hotels think government can't do anything, that we should privatize, that we should manage competition. So I've privatized it to them. Go do it. Why do you need me here? You don't need the government for this. And they claim it's a private thing. Why do they need the government? I kept asking, why do you need the government to collect this tax? Well, they say not everybody will pay. Well, if everybody doesn't want to pay, that's your problem, not the government's problem. So fund it. So the people who are losing, or who supposedly losing their jobs, I think it's a tactic here that should be talking to Mr. Brown and his people. They can fund this thing tomorrow. Yes, sir.
Are you worried at all that, this is the third skirmish you've had with the city council, with the Sandag appointments, the Port Commission appointments, and now this? Do you think that, is this going to be a problem going forward? Obviously you have an agenda that you want to get through the city council. Do you think that there's some sort of growing animosity, or is that not the case?
Yeah, as I said, this is not the way I would have liked to have gone. I didn't ask for any of those confrontations. I thought this one was set up when it looked like, in fact, when it looked like we were about to settle. That's when Mr. Brown stopped talking to me and said he wouldn't join me in asking for a continuance. They didn't want a settlement. I don't think they wanted to impose this on me, and yeah, that doesn't help a relationship which we ought to be helping. I said it was a sad day. And we're going to have to work to repair that. So none of this is good for San Diego. And I thought it could have been avoided. I tried to avoid it. And I think other people had other motives here to force that on us. I mean, Mr. Brown did not tell me that they were going to have this big demonstration. I'm negotiating with him all weekend on Monday morning. And I said, well, it looks like we're 3 sentences short of it. Let's ask for a continuance on Tuesday. He said, no, I can't do that. I said, why? I can't do that. By the way, I'll show you how close we are. I mean, as I said, we were about 3 sentences away. And we had agreed to all the general principles. For example, we had agreed that there shall be a $6 million contribution to Balboa Park Centennial Fund, $3 million in each of 2 years. So we agreed on that. They came back with their wording, and it said basically, we will entertain a application for a maximum of $6 million. So I said I wanted to change 2 words. I didn't want them to entertain, or they use another word, but something like that. I mean, they would accept an application. I said, I want you to fund an application for a minimum of $6 million. I mean, there's not that much difference, right? Couple words. That's literally how close we were. On the transparency of the contracting agencies, they wanted to use as the transparent tool the tax return, say from Conviz. The tax return from Conviz shows very little and very summary information. So I said, rather than the tax return, let's use the employee contract, say with Mr. Terzi. They asked for one document, I asked for another. That's where we left it on Monday morning. Or Tuesday morning, I forget now.
Did you give up the demand that it be capped at 160?
Yes. In fact, well, I didn't give it up. What we negotiated, everything, the cap, what we agreed to was there should be performance evaluations of all employees who were contracted with. So yeah, I mean, so I quote gave that up. On the living wage, the council president agreed to have a meeting of the council on that issue. I took that as a win. It wasn't in the contract. It was an agreement by Mr. Gloria to hold a meeting. So as I said, we had settled virtually everything. We got down to the only other meeting. One was Balboa Park, and I said I had 2 words of problem. The one was transparency, which we had 1 document as a problem, and the third was the indemnification, which came down to this. I had asked for insurance, and they thought that would cost too much, and I said, if it costs too much, that means it's a risky deal, but that in itself is evidence that maybe we should not be involved in this. But I said, look, if you get the top 25 hotels who really control the organization to indemnify the city, that would be fine with me. They came back and said, well, the top 25 will indemnify their losses. I mean, their share of the office of the losses if there were any from the city. That is roughly, say, 70%. So they agreed to indemnify 70%, and I went back and said, no, I want 100%. But that's how close we were. I mean, surely we could have agreed on 70 versus 100 on the 6 million maximum or minimum, and the kind of documentation we would have for transparency. That's the three issues we were down to. And frankly, I just was shocked that they didn't agree to continue talking on it.
Were you still willing to talk?
Of course, and my last offer is into them. I made changes on those three issues and gave it back to them.
100% could have been brought down possibly, or at least you would have listened.
I would listen to their return on me.
So this end run that appears to have been done on you, I mean, you're no rookie. You're from Washington, D.C. I mean, you're from here, but there as well, and have played hardball with, you know, some of the toughest.
I saw it as bad faith bargaining. That is, they were bargaining with me, hoping that we would, I think, come to wouldn't agree, because they had this meeting all set up to confront me on it, and then we were that close, as though they just had to break it off.
Whose vote surprised you? I'm sorry, this is the last question.
I'm sorry?
Last question from me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Whose vote surprised you most on the council?
No, I thought they should have. I asked for continuance. I was surprised that they didn't do a 48-hour continuance. I mean, I couldn't. What's the problem with that? It turned out that they wanted to confront me on it.
Did you think 3 or 4 months ago now, when you took this job, that you'd be in here battling as much as you have been, mentioning the three skirmishes, if you will? I mean, you can't be friends with everybody, obviously, but just because of the style that I guess, you know, you started back in your teenage years and the civil rights movement, a lot of people, you know, would say, hey, you just love bruising it up, mixing it up. How do you
No, I
respond?
mean, I don't love it. Look, when I was president of the school board in San Diego, I had 4 other Republicans and me. And we had unanimous votes virtually on everything because I was able to bring everybody into the process. And I prefer that. In fact, that year I got less attention press in the press than any other year I was in politics. But I got more done. So I would prefer to get things done than have the press on it, frankly. So I didn't expect to be here. It's been and these issues you don't plan them. They come up because I mean, I thought that TMD thing, which I opposed during the campaign, if you remember, I went to speak against it. I thought it was all signed and delivered. I thought, you know, that issue has been put to bed. All of a sudden, it turns out somebody says to me, you have a contract to sign. I said, I thought Sanders signed that one. So all of a sudden, it's an issue where it didn't have to be. I mean, I didn't plan it. The Port Commission, I didn't know that we'd have 2 resignations, you know, right away off the bat that I had to be involved in. What was the other one? Oh, and I mean, I assumed, for example, that's the way the Sandag thing was set up. I would make the nominations and people would respond to that. And all of a sudden, I got somebody saying, no, I'm going to make the nomination. So, I mean, I didn't plan any of this, so I didn't expect any of it. I would have hoped for a much more tranquil first 100 days, frankly.
For an off that topic question.
Please, Mr. Coates.
The extent of your concern about your proposal for a permit process for medical marijuana dispensaries, what kind of impact would you be concerned about, or are you concerned about negative impact on residential neighborhoods, even though there's a 200-yard margin, and commercial district for that matter, where, you know, you've got businesses that don't want to be next to a dispensary that gets jacked up?
Yeah, I mean, these are difficult issues, which is why they're political issues, because they're not easy. Otherwise, we would have solved them a long time ago. And most political decisions are trade-offs between 2 things. I mean, you got to find a balance between good things you're trying to protect. On the one hand, the humanitarian access to medical marijuana is, I think, an important aim. It's also important to protect neighborhoods, to protect our children, to protect, you know, people from being in high crime areas, whatever, you know, that people are concerned with. So you got 2 goods and you got to find a way to balance them, and that's not easy. The city council tried on one, year and a half or so ago, and they came down, I think, too much. They gave too little access to use, medical marijuana. So I've tried to move it to greater access, but with also greater protections at the same time for neighborhoods. That is, in the amount of space between, dispensaries, for example. We made stronger the protection that to get your access card, you have to go personally to the Department of is it Human Services in the county, the health department. They have to. They're the ones responsible for certifying you and giving you your ID card and registering you in a registry in which it would be illegal for someone to be sold marijuana unless they were in that registry. I think the higher permit fee is a protection against fly-by-night people, etc. So I've tried to strengthen some of the regulations while at the same time easing the access, and hopefully there's a balance there that the council will find appropriate. And of course, it's going to go through probably some amendments, and we'll see which direction people are moving into. I think you got to protect both, and the balance. I submitted my judgment on the balance. We'll see what the council does as their balance.
Would you be interested in doing a pilot project geographically set up so that you could see, the extent
Sure.
that residents go, wait a minute, or there's robberies or that kind of stuff?
It's not something I had heard about before, but yeah, thank you. You're such a genius.
Occurred to me, I don't know why.
I got to say something about you.
Easy, don't put that on me. Don't put that on
Phil is a great man.
Were you rolling?
What kind
But
of
Dean is not. No, he has no camera, so don't worry about him.
So what kind of interference would you expect from the U.S. attorney here?
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I got to try to get an ordinance. I would immediately get on the phone with Attorney General Holder and ask for a different policy that they pursued in the past toward this issue, and give us a chance to see if it works. He can call off Ms. Duffy, and I know Mr. Holder pretty well. I've talked to him in the past about this, but we did not have an ordinance where I could show to him, and that's what I'm going to do right away. There's also legislation. When I was in Congress, I authored legislation. It did not pass. To allow states like California, there's about 15 states that have, in fact, legalized medical marijuana by state law or referendum, and to try to say that those states should be allowed to do that. And there's similar legislation in Congress now. I don't know what chance it has or anything, but there is legislation to try to would give us the ability of cities and states like we are in the opportunity, or like we are the opportunity to do that. But that's another track that I don't want to get too much involved in unless we can pass an ordinance.
And you had said that you included a ban on pot vending machines, and Medbox, one of the ones that has these so-called pot vending machines, they put out a press release yesterday saying they met with you and explained their machines. Can you talk about, have you...
I never heard of them before. I mean,
okay.
They had some press release, which some of you guys picked up, that said there's going to be vending machines. I mean, I never heard of them. I never heard of them. I never heard of vending machines. So as soon as, and our... the draft of the legislation we had, people assured me that it would not allow vending machines, but I decided I didn't want any questions, so I wrote in a ban on vending machines. And now they're saying, I don't know, I didn't even bother reading the articles, but they said something about the legislation allowed them again. I've never talked to them. I don't know who they are. We're banning vending machines, just specifically because it's become an issue because these guys apparently have know how to do press releases and know how to. What did we call them? The fireman's arsonist? What'd you start up? Arsonist fireman. They're arsonist firemen. They start a fire.
How would you, I mean, given the fact you talked about it briefly about your first 100 days here, how would you characterize it? Just what's your assessment of how you've done and how you've been perceived in the community?
Well, I think it's clear we set a tone of change and involvement and community participation and a change in the, as I said, the face of City Hall or who's sitting at the table of power for politics and economics. So I think that's clear. I would have liked to have done it without all the drama. But I mean, we are challenging the status quo. And I think I think people are in general are supporting what I'm doing. At least when I go around the city, I sense that. But it has caused some controversy, and you can only go as far as the political environment allows you to. And I'm not, as I said, I'm not unhappy with the results so far. I sent out a list of 8,000 things that we've been able to do in the first 100 days. But I would have liked to have done it without all the polarization, because I don't think that's good in the long run. It doesn't help me in the long run, as was pointed out, and it doesn't help our city. So I would like to get us back into working posture. Like, for example, the city attorney and I are in total agreement. Roll the drums. On seals. That is, I issued an emergency proclamation closing the beach at night during the pupping season, because that was the only way the police thought they could enforce some of the maltreatment of the animals there. And he agrees with me and will vigorously defend us. I will proudly stand with him as my attorney when we're sued on that.
You seem to be rather proactive. When that issue came up, you wanted some reaction right away. The red light camera thing, you heard enough of that, you reacted right away. Again, a lot of people seem to be on your side with that kind of management style here at City Hall. I mean, how are you feeling about those decisions? You seem to be getting on things relatively quickly when it comes to those hot button issues.
Well, most issues we have discussed or known about for some time. I mean, they become known, to people like Phil and Gene rather late in there. But no, that is, as the real press would know, the working press. I mean, these come up at community meetings. They come up at I mean, it's something. It's not something I just heard about one day. I mean, we've been looking at them for some time. And I have made announcements on many of them, during the campaign and other times. So I needed to get some more information. Say on the red lights, I had made I think a statement during the campaign. As mayor, though, I have to be more, what shall I say, studious about it. And so I made sure the police department was fully supportive of it. On the seals, to look at what. The technology and some of the legal structure I didn't know about. But, I mean, I am decisive, and I think I did the right thing in those cases. But I wouldn't do them just, on a whim. I think I've studied these pretty extensively in all the cases and looked at the legal and the political and environmental stuff all the time.
On the issue of the Padres being accessible on Time Warner Cable, have you heard back from corporate management on that? And what is your thought about the fans who don't have cable? They got to get it even if Time Warner says, okay, we'll spring for it. How do you reconcile the issues of the public access, but the actual private control of the product, and the fact that there is a constituency of Padre viewers out there that don't want to get cable, don't want to have to pay the.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know, you've drunk the Kool-Aid too. That is, I mean, Time Warner says they have to pay even if they don't get it. I don't know that's, I mean, I could figure out some structure that wouldn't be the case. But without getting into their internal pricing, because you're looking at me so strangely. But No, I mean, I don't understand that they claim. I mean, why don't they just? I mean, if you don't want the Padres, you opt out and you get a cheaper rate. I mean, come on, I could figure out 100 ways to do that, if I really wanted to serve the community and broadcast the Padres, which I think they should do. But it's also not a strictly private matter that I'm not allowed to interfere with. Just like the hotel thing, I can only interfere with because they're asking for tax collecting authority from the city. I don't think they should be asking that, and then I couldn't say anything to them, right? But they've asked the city to collect the tax. So all of a sudden I'm involved with it. They say, oh, why are you talking about living wage? Well, because you asked us to. You brought the government in. Public cable companies and broadcast companies are regulated by public means, sometimes some fed, some state, some local. So they have a public franchise. Public franchise to me means public responsibilities. Public responsibilities means I have a say in these things. In fact, I looked at the agreement. I dug up the franchise agreement. You know what it said? And the city attorney informed me that the law had changed. But when I looked at that, you could see, you could tell how excited I got. It said the mayor gets to approve rate increases. I said, wow, this is better than TMD. I said, wow, I have some leverage over them. It turned out the attorney claimed that the federal law had preempted that, but I'll check into further. But the franchise agreement did provide the city, and now the state has certain powers that the city once had, but they have certain responsibilities under that franchise, which are spelled out. I mean, they agreed to provide stuff to schools, for example, and they have to do certain broadcast and cable access to schools. So they have responsibilities. So that gives me, I think, the opportunity to try to get them to do the right thing here.
And those without cable, they're just kind of on their own. If they don't become consumers, they're left out in left field, right field.
Well, we're also is city CCTV here? Could you do the Padre games? Why not? We're going to put it on CCTV. Breaking news. We're looking into that actually. I mean, I want to see why not, maybe temporarily, as another tool or another leverage point on the. You're surprised when I come up with these interesting ideas.
You
took the bait. Idea. Oh no, that was your idea.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're looking into what if the Padres allowed and Fox allowed us to do that, say for a month. See if what happens to Time Warner's view. I mean, I think it's worth looking at. And I said I would explore all possibilities, including a boycott and but other means to accomplish that. So you're going to have free tickets to the Padre games.
You still got to get cable. Okay, basic cable.
I don't know about those things. You know,
You
want to be the cable guy? I can hire you as our cable editor.
Can I ask you about the border and the wait times? There have been increasing, and they're expected to increase on April because of the sequestration. So can you tell me what are this office doing and with the help of Tijuana to prevent this, or I don't know, to try to solve this issue?
I'm trying to figure out a way to wrap up everything we've talked about into one issue. We're going to have the hotel operators work with Time Warner and the SEALs to end the wait time. I'm a great synthesizer of all information. I'm not sure that's going to happen or not. I hope not. By the way, the final legislation that the continuing resolution that the Congress passed exempted certain agencies from being subject to sequestration. I think Homeland Security was part of that. I'll have to check that. So it may not be as grave as people forecast because Congress pulled back on some of that. Obviously, I would, I and all the business community and all the people who have to cross the border would try to convince the federal government to put in the resources necessary to not allow those wait times to increase. I mean, it's vital to our trade. It's vital to our family relationships and vital to our social fabric that those wait times be reduced. And whether or not it lengthens because of sequestration, we're going to make that argument. The mayor of Tijuana and I are going both to Mexico City and Washington to make that argument to both national governments. We hope that because we are executives of our city, the feds would receive us in a more respectful way than when I was a congressman. But we expect to work together to try to be changing this situation overall, whether or not the sequestration worsens it.
The trip to Mexico City is in April, so when will be the trip to Washington?
Yeah, we haven't scheduled that yet, but it'll be soon.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize for being tardy, and I'm sure you touched on this already, but the tourism marketing deal and all the mess last night.
Oh, you didn't hear the news that we settled that?
You settled it?
Tell her that we.
Tell me. Something tell me.
deal.
You were late, and so
I'm
it's all
late.
lost. It's a done
all
deal.
over. Okay.
It's done. Next. What would you like to know, ma'am?
I would like to know what the
Ms.
next
Tardy.
step is, please, sir. And would like to know if you have any second thoughts about the sort of venomous exchange you guys have been having. It's a big word. I looked at the dictionaries.
How should I put this without rewriting everything? Look, I'm still hopeful that that the hotel operators and I can come to a negotiated settlement. I laid out before you so tardily arrived. There's only 3 sticking points, and they're relatively minor, and they're just. I mean, I shouldn't say that. In language, they're minor, and philosophy, I think they're probably major. I thought we were really close yesterday. I thought we shouldn't have had the venomous meeting. We should have postponed it for a couple of days. I think we could have had an agreement. It looked to me like they really didn't want an agreement. They wanted to have the confrontation. In retrospect, as I see what happened, so I'm still hopeful that we can negotiate this. It's not, as I said, a good thing for San Diego, for our city, for our tourism, for our economy, for our politics to be so polarized like this, and we should find a way to compromise on this. My offer is on the table. I would like them to call me about it since I made the last offer, but I'll call them if I don't hear from them. Yeah, well, that resolution hasn't been approved yet by the mayor, so I don't know.
Okay. What about these?
I have 10 days whether to.
Okay. What about this talk and the letter that went out and the bumper sticker talking about recalling you? Do you give these people any credibility at all?
Yeah, well, so if somebody's doing it, it's obviously it's on somebody's mind. I would hope that that's a pretty what shall I say dramatic step to take if you disagree with someone. In our electoral system, we have an election. You give people the term of office, and hopefully things are not as venomous as would allow a recall. I mean, that's a pretty drastic step. I mean, it seems to me that somebody would have to do some, illegal thing or something. I mean, because you disagree with people, every time you disagree, you're going to change, the election. So I would hope, obviously, that the vast majority of people would not go to that step. Well, I would, if no, I won't say anymore.
Mayor, the Supreme Court this week heard is hearing arguments about marriage equality, and your predecessor, a Republican, was a strong supporter in the end of marriage equality. He was in a leadership role with Freedom to Marry, Mayors for Freedom to Marry. Are you, if the Supreme Court comes back with decisions that are not favorable to the LGBT community, are you likely to step up your role with organizations such as?
Yeah, well, that remains to be seen. But yeah, and I'm a member now. Obviously, because of the way the Mayor Sanders came to that conclusion, and the fact that he was a Republican, gave him, allowed his leadership to be more influential there. But I also am a member of the same groups and have the same philosophy as he did on that.
Do you have any update on that?
Go ahead.
I just want to add on the suspension, La Jolla, the seals. Is there any update on the next steps there?
I think we're about to vacuum it up. That is, we are in the process of getting whatever permits are required to finally deal with it. I'm not sure. Does anybody, Vince or anybody know? I'm sorry. I lost track of that because I thought it was coming up and everything was being settled. Apparently, washing it down is a problem because of stuff in the water, but vacuuming it up might be reliable. And I gave them a time frame of a month or two. Otherwise, I was going to go up there with my Hoover vacuum cleaner and do it.
What's the latest on Plaza
Would
Day?
I be sued?
What's the latest on your plan for the Plaza Day Panama? You were going to try to get that out in a few weeks last time we met, and it hasn't happened yet. So,
yeah, I had asked for, as you may recall, some budget authority to do that in the mid-year adjustment that I put forward, and the council did not approve that. I asked for several $100,000 to move that, but we're moving forward with a plan that we will present to all the stakeholders, both within the park and the neighborhoods around it. For example, of a I'll call it a low-tech plan without a bridge to get the cars out of the center of Balboa Park, out of the Plaza de Panama. That would move the parking that is necessary there, for example, for handicap, and maybe even for and get the valet parking just moved, but keep the circulation of cars as a possibility there, but for far less interference with pedestrians. And we're going to have to do this in any case. I mean, the timelines are not just when I could do something. The bridge is being renovated right now, and it's a one-way thing right now that they alternate which lanes. But it's going to close for 5 months beginning in January. So we have to have a different pattern before then anyway. And it turned out in anticipation of the so-called Jacobs Plan being passed, the city had purchased or put down significant amounts of money for trams that would be useful for bringing in people while that parking garage was going to be constructed, and an issue came up, should we go through with that? And I think we're going to need the trams anyway, both during the centennial and and for any parking thing that I propose, because you need to park outside the center of Balboa Park and have a tram system bring it in. So we're going to buy those trams like they have at Disneyland, I guess, is the best way to visualize them. So we're going to go forward with that. Did you ask me or did you ask me? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I was looking at Phil.
Two questions. First is, in terms of what the next step is. On Thursday, there's going to be another meeting of the city council, and Todd Gloria was saying he would entertain amendments to the agreement. Are you going to be proposing amendments?
Well, I didn't know there was another meeting. I had asked for a Thursday meeting. I had asked for one, yesterday, but so I don't know, because, as I said, I haven't heard from the other side. When there's negotiations, there's usually two sides. I think they believe that they can strong arm me into doing something that I don't want to do. So they've abandoned, and look to me, they've abandoned negotiations and tried to confront me on it. And as I said, and I used the words advisedly, they bought off the city council to make sure that occurred. And if you, I think you guys should look up some of the campaign contributions from those who serve on the TMD board. Look them up to our city attorney, who did not have a campaign but got tens of thousands of dollars from those folks. Look up Mr. Gloria, who did not have a campaign but got tens of thousands of dollars from those folks. Mr. Kersey, who did not have a campaign, how much money he got from those folks. I mean, they were not shy, especially in a situation where there was no campaign, about making sure they knew who was that these guys were properly, let's say, informed of who was supporting them. And I don't think it's any accident that they feel they have to vote for these guys.
I had a question about homeless veterans. A colleague of mine is writing a story about Major David Coate. He supposedly met with you last week to talk about a data-driven way of looking at you know, which veterans are falling through the cracks. Can you talk a little bit about what he
Yeah.
was working on and your thoughts on it?
Well, first of all, this is a top priority of mine. You know, when I was chairman of the Veterans Committee in the Congress, I stood with President Obama to make the announcement of a zero-tolerance plan for veterans homelessness for this nation. We're in the second year of that plan. That is to get all veterans off the street. And it was a fully funded program to do that, and I think we'll succeed. That takes half the problem away from mayors all over the country. Now, as mayor, I want to be the first mayor that actually implements that. That is, that we can say in San Diego, a great military town, that we have zero veterans on the street. And I have some ideas about how to do that, that we're looking at financial ways to succeed. And when, is it Captain Coat or Major? When this Marine Major who was had ties to San Diego but was working in the Pentagon flew out here to see me to talk about this issue, I wanted to see him. I wanted to see what he was thinking. He wrote a master's thesis, I think, on the kind of issues that would lead to success or failure of a given program to get veterans off the street, and how you would recognize that early. It would be good for providers to, if he, you know, assuming he's accurate, that, for example, if people had been in a program before or not, there's more or less chance of succeeding in the next program, and it would allow people to quickly decide who would get the most gain out of a given program. But I mean, it's just one example of his criteria, I think. And I asked him basically I told him some of the ideas I had, and would he be involved if he had a chance? And he said he would like to work with me on it. So he has you know, the military background, the leadership, the knowledge of San Diego, both the intellectual and the practical understanding of homelessness. So I hoped he would help us on this, and that I would get we try to get his leave from the Pentagon to do it with me.
And then one question. This morning, the Budget Committee had an update on managed competition, and I know the Republicans on the council and the IBA both urged your staff at the hearing today to move forward on the 5 that are on the sidelines that are being on hold while you review the managed competition process. And they think that at least 1 or 2 of those could move forward while you do the review of the entire program. Just curious your reaction to that.
I appreciate their advice. No, they're going to be on hold. And if they really want to privatize something, they should look at the TMD. I mean, talk about the nerve. They just yesterday voted to bring in something that's in the private sector to the public, and now they want, they're advising me to take something in the public sector out in the private sector. Tell them they ought to be consistent in what they want to, how they want to approach this thing. I'd be happy to privatize the whole hotel motel thing.
One question about the seal cam. When you first introduced it,
It's running on CC channel 24.
well, when you first introduced it, it was this real feel-good thing. Oh, we'll be able to see the seals give pups and everything. Have
you seen, by the way, you know, they had, you could see the birth of a pup on that. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. You guys gotta watch this. It's on YouTube somewhere. They took a.
I've actually watched it. It is incredible. But I was wondering, did you have an inkling that there would be this kind of abuse that you would also catch on camera?
No, I mean, I never really thought of the camera in any way beside as a research. I happened to observe personally some of that abuse. I mean, I was up there many times during the day, during the weekend. I mean, there's this little group of people, most of whom are not from San Diego, who seem to have adopted as their purpose in life to harass seals, and they would be teaching their children to do it. So I had an inkling of it. It was just accidental that they got caught on camera doing that, and it gave us, I would say, you know, the probable cause or whatever the police talk about to say why we needed to close the beach in the evening.
You were talking about the polarization that you continue to go up against. I know you probably weren't surprised by this when you took office. How are you going to try to diffuse a lot of that? Are you gonna become more conciliatory, less combative? What are you gonna try to do to try to meet in the middle here?
Oh, of course. I mean, look, we have to govern, whether you're from the point of view of the city council, the point of view of the mayor, the point of view of the city attorney. And we all want to succeed, and we all love San Diego. So I think that's what will drive us to try to work together. And look, you can find points of agreement with everybody and anybody. I mean, I've been working up in, we had some infrastructure announcements in Rancho Bernardo that I announced with Mr. Kersey. I worked with Mr. Sherman on Mission Trails. We worked on Mr. Faulkner on the Ocean Beach Wall. I mean, there's always things to work on together and to come to agreement on. So we will disagree on this. The next time we'll agree. I mean, that's just the ebb and flow, as it were, of politics. And conditions change. I mean, we will soon have another representative on the council from District 4. I'm not sure exactly when that election be, but both of the finalists are friends of mine and supporters of mine. So you have a different calculus, if you want, on the city council and how many votes you have here and there. So the situation changes. Let me just give you an example of a recent coming together where we were polarized. In fact, it's not been in the public view, but we're in the midst of our negotiations with our employees, for contract. Given what Proposition B did, and given the financial facts, I came to the conclusion that a 5-year agreement with our employees would be a very good thing. One, it would allow us to do a pensionable pay freeze for 5 years, is what Proposition B said, and it would be, that's the only money saver in Prop B. And I said, hey, we can do that because you can do non-pensionable increases if you have a long enough time period to do that. 5 years gives you enough time because we have budget surpluses projected for the second, third, fourth, fifth year out. Next year is still tough. And you'd have labor peace for 5 years. I mean, it would be a very good thing. And if our employees saw a raise in their paycheck, which you can do with non-pensionable pay increases, it would raise their morale, and they would see light at the end of the tunnel. Remember, they haven't had any pay increases for 5, 6, 7 years. So I brought to the council a recommendation for 5-year contracts. That ran into a 4-4 stalemate. That is, the council could not agree on whether to proceed on a 5-year thing. We had many discussions, many one-on-ones. I mean, everybody, not just the mayor, but everybody. And we have now come to a unanimous agreement to at least offer a 5-year deal. I thought that took some time. That didn't happen overnight. That took 3 or 4 weeks of very tense discussions. But we came to that agreement. And it was around, the 5-year proposal that I would have liked would have been, say, much better, say, for employees than the 5-year that the council eventually agreed on, because the people didn't want it, brought it down. So, but we ended up with a compromise. And I think that was good. I think a 5-year plan is going to be great for San Diego if we can accomplish it. I mean, we're in the middle of negotiations, that's going on behind closed doors. But if we can come up with a 5-year pensionable pay freeze, which, Prop B is going to be in limbo for 3, 4 or more years. What if we actually implemented it in terms of the cost savings? That would be a great thing, I think, for our council and for the city. And we also the employees were able to see some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of their own benefits. So a 5-year deal can do that, and we've came to an agreement on it. No, that's all to be negotiated. I can't talk about that, but the overall context about the 5-year. Within that, there's infinite possibilities. Right, right. But that was an important step, and that happened over many weeks. And there was we called it a polarization, but people on each side talked to each other over a long period of time. People wanted different information, which we were all able to get, and came to an agreement. So it can be done. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll give you one last question.
In regard to the 4th District's recent election and so forth, the citizens there are curious to know who their go-to person is, for their issues while this gets sorted out, until the next council person is elected.
Well, I mean, the staff from District 4 is still there. I mean, the chief of staff, Jimmy Slack, I think, is still working. Is he still? He's still on. He's still the chief of staff for District 4, and I think the council president has legal control over the office. But the staff is still there, and certainly we're willing to help anybody in any part of the city, including District 4.
Do you have a preference for between Cole and Crenshaw? You said they're both your friends and supporters.
Took 61 minutes for you to ask that. We'll have some announcement on that in due course.